Ferrari's car gets a huge boost after the car development plan is revealed. Williams' bad start could cost them big time, and Aston is ready to be the dark horse of the season. Let's get into the latest F1 news. What if I told you that Ferrari just pulled off something that could change everything for the 2026 Formula One season? While other teams are scrambling just to get their cars ready for testing, the Italian giants have quietly achieved something that most experts thought would be nearly impossible this early in development. And it all comes down to 2 simple kilograms that could be worth tenths of a second per lap. Welcome back to the channel, racing fans. Today, we're diving deep into Ferrari's latest breakthrough with their SF26 Challenger, and why this development has serious implications for what could be the most competitive Formula One season we've seen in years. But before we get into the technical details that have engineers around the paddock talking, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because we've got exclusive insights coming your way that you won't find anywhere else. Let's start with what happened last Friday at Fiorano. Picture this scene. Thousands of passionate tifosi gathered outside Ferrari's private test track, their voices echoing across the Italian countryside as the SF26 took its first tentative laps. Both Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc were behind the wheel, and from all accounts, the mood in the Ferrari camp was electric. This wasn't just another shakedown run. This was the moment when months of winter development work finally came together on track. But here's where things get really interesting. While Williams found themselves missing the crucial first week of Barcelona testing, Ferrari demonstrated they're not just on schedule with their 2026 development program. They're actually ahead of where many expected them to be. The Maranello team has been working through a comprehensive testing plan that's already yielding impressive results. Now, you might be wondering what makes this Ferrari so special compared to previous years. After all, we've seen plenty of promising winter testing, performances that didn't translate to championship success. But this time, there's something fundamentally different happening behind the scenes, and it all starts with one critical number: 768 kilograms. That's the minimum weight limit for Formula One cars in 2026, and achieving it has become something of a holy grail for engineering teams across the grid. Most teams expect to start the season carrying at least 10 extra kilograms above this minimum, which might not sound like much, but in Formula One terms, it's absolutely massive. We're talking about several tenths of a second lost per lap just from carrying excess weight. Ferrari's achievement is remarkable. Their SF26 currently sits at just 770 kilograms, only 2 kilograms over the regulatory minimum. To put this in perspective, that's the difference between a competitive car and a championship contender right from the opening race. While their rivals will be spending precious development time and resources trying to shed weight, Ferrari can focus entirely on extracting performance through aerodynamic improvements and setup optimization. Think about the strategic advantage this creates. Every kilogram matters in Formula One, but it's not just about raw performance. Weight affects tire degradation, fuel consumption, brake wear, and even suspension setup. A lighter car is more responsive to driver inputs, more forgiving over curbs, and crucially, easier to set up for different track conditions. Ferrari has essentially given themselves a head start that could prove decisive throughout the season. But weight is just one piece of the puzzle. The SF26's debut at Fiorano revealed some fascinating technical developments that suggest Ferrari's engineering team has been thinking outside the box. The car showcased advanced aerodynamic specifications that bear interesting similarities to what Mercedes revealed during their Silverstone shakedown. This isn't coincidental convergent evolution. It suggests that both teams have identified similar aerodynamic concepts as the key to unlocking performance from the 2026 regulations. What's particularly impressive is Ferrari's approach to development testing. Next week's Barcelona tests will see 2 different versions of the SF26 on track simultaneously, allowing the team to conduct real-time comparative analysis. This level of preparation and resource allocation demonstrates the seriousness with which Ferrari is approaching the 2026 season. They're not just building one car and hoping it works. They're developing multiple concepts in parallel to ensure they find the optimal package. The implications extend beyond just this season. Formula One's technical regulations are relatively stable for 2026, meaning that getting the fundamental package right from the start could provide advantages that compound over multiple seasons. Teams that start behind will face the difficult challenge of making up ground while the leaders continue to develop their advantages. Ferrari's winter progress becomes even more significant when you consider the broader competitive landscape. Mercedes appears to be taking a similar approach with their W17, suggesting that the top teams are converging on certain technical solutions. Meanwhile, other traditionally strong teams seem to be facing different challenges, as evidenced by Williams missing crucial testing time. The psychological impact shouldn't be underestimated either. Ferrari entering the season with a fundamentally sound package could boost confidence throughout the organization. We've seen how momentum can build in Formula One. Success breeds success, while problems tend to cascade. Starting the season knowing your car is close to the optimal weight target removes one major variable from the equation. For Lewis Hamilton, this represents a golden opportunity. The 7-time world champion made the move to Ferrari specifically to chase that elusive 8th title, and having a competitive car from day one is crucial for any championship campaign. At this stage of his career, Hamilton doesn't have time to wait for a team to develop their way back to competitiveness. He needs a car that can win races immediately. Charles Leclerc, meanwhile, has been waiting for Ferrari to give him a truly championship-capable car throughout his time with the team. The early signs from the SF26 development suggest this could finally be his moment. The combination of a proven race winner in Hamilton and a hungry young talent in Leclerc could create the perfect storm for Ferrari's championship aspirations. The technical achievement of getting so close to minimum weight this early in development speaks to broader improvements within Ferrari's organization. The team has been rebuilding its technical structure for several years, and these results suggest that investment is finally paying dividends. Getting weight distribution right requires perfect integration between chassis, powertrain, and aerodynamics departments, something that hasn't always been Ferrari's strength. Looking ahead to Barcelona testing, all eyes will be on how the SF26 performs in direct comparison with its rivals. Winter testing can be misleading, with teams running different fuel loads, engine modes, and development priorities. But Ferrari's weight advantage is a concrete, measurable benefit that will translate directly to lap time, regardless of testing programs. The broader 2026 season is shaping up to be one of the most unpredictable in recent memory. With relatively stable regulations, performance differences between teams could be minimal, making every small advantage crucial. Ferrari's early weight optimization could be the difference between fighting for podiums and fighting for championships. As we head into the new season, Ferrari appears to have learned from past mistakes. Rather than rushing to get a car on track and then spending months trying to fix fundamental issues, they've taken the time to get the basics right from the start. Sometimes the most important victories happen in the engineering office, not on the racetrack. What do you think about Ferrari's early 2026 progress? Could this weight advantage be the key to their championship hopes? Or are there other factors that will prove more important throughout the season? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more Formula One insights and analysis. Until next time, keep those engines revving. Could Adrian Newey pull off the greatest comeback story in Formula One history? What if I told you that one of the most legendary designers in motorsport just joined a team that finished dead last among the top constructors, and experts are now predicting they could shock the world in ways we haven't seen since 2009? Welcome back to the channel, where today we're diving deep into what could be the most explosive transformation of Formula One has witnessed in over a decade. We're talking about Adrian Newey's move to Aston Martin and why former world champion Damon Hill believes we're about to witness lightning strike twice in the most spectacular way possible. Before we get started, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell because the 2026 season is shaping up to be absolutely wild, and you won't want to miss any of our coverage as this story unfolds. Now, let's set the stage here. Adrian Newey isn't just any designer. This man is quite literally the Michael Jordan of Formula One aerodynamics. We're talking about someone who has been involved in more than 200 race victories and has contributed to 26 combined drivers and constructors championships across multiple teams. That's not just impressive, that's borderline supernatural in the world of motorsport. But here's where it gets really interesting. After dominating with Red Bull for years, Newey made the shocking decision to jump ship and join Aston Martin, a team that just finished 7th in the Constructors' Championship. 7th? That's like watching Tom Brady leave the Patriots at their peak to join a team that barely made the playoffs. It doesn't make sense unless you know something everyone else doesn't. And that's exactly what Damon Hill thinks is happening here. Hill, who won the 1996 World Championship driving a Newey-designed Williams, dropped an absolute bombshell recently when he suggested we could see a complete changing of the guard in Formula One. But he didn't stop there. He specifically referenced the legendary Brawn GP story of 2009. And if you know anything about that season, you know exactly why that comparison should send chills down every competitor's spine. Let me paint you a picture of just how insane the Brawn GP story really was. In 2008, Honda finished 9th in the Constructors' Championship, absolutely nowhere near competitive. The team was struggling so badly that Honda actually pulled out of Formula One entirely. But here's the twist that nobody saw coming. Ross Brawn bought the team, kept working on their 2009 car in secret, and when the new regulations kicked in, they didn't just improve. They absolutely obliterated the competition. Jenson Button, who had been driving mid-pack cars his entire career, suddenly found himself in a rocket ship that could compete with anyone on the grid. Brawn GP went from being the forgotten team that Honda abandoned to winning both the Drivers' and Constructors' Championships in their very first season. It was the most shocking underdog story Formula One had ever seen. Now, Hill is suggesting that Newey could orchestrate the exact same type of miracle at Aston Martin. And when you look at the pieces falling into place, it's actually not as crazy as it sounds. First, we're heading into the 2026 season with completely new regulations, new engine rules, new aerodynamic packages, essentially a complete reset of the competitive order. And if there's one thing Adrian Newey has proven throughout his career, it's that he has an almost supernatural ability to interpret new regulations and find advantages that other teams completely miss. Think about it. Newey has successfully navigated major rule changes at Williams, McLaren, and Red Bull. Each time, he's found ways to extract performance that left competitors scratching their heads and desperately trying to copy what he was doing. The man has a track record of turning regulation changes into competitive advantages, and 2026 represents the biggest regulation overhaul we've seen in years. But there's another crucial element that makes this Brawn GP comparison even more compelling: the Honda partnership. Yes, you heard that right. Honda is coming back to Formula One as Aston Martin's engine supplier for 2026. Which means we're looking at the same manufacturer that was involved in the original Brawn GP miracle. Coincidence? I think not. Now, I'll be completely honest with you. Honda's return isn't without its challenges. They've been out of Formula One since 2021, which means they've lost valuable development time and institutional knowledge. Koji Watanabe, the president of Honda Racing Corporation, has even admitted that not everything is going perfectly with their 2026 engine development. That's concerning, but it's also exactly the kind of adversity that great teams use as motivation. Here's what really gets me excited about this whole situation. Newey has been working on this project for about 18 months now. That's not someone just showing up and hoping for the best. That's a methodical, strategic approach to building something special. He officially joined Aston Martin in March 2025, but his influence on the AMR26 car has been building for much longer than that. And let's talk about the upgrades Aston Martin has been making behind the scenes. When Newey first visited the team, he immediately identified their simulation tools as a major weakness. Instead of making excuses, Aston Martin went out and hired Giles Wood, Newey's former Red Bull colleague, as their simulation and vehicle modeling director. They also brought in Marco Finello, a former Ferrari simulations expert, as a consultant. These aren't just random hirings. These are strategic moves designed to build the infrastructure needed to support Newey's vision. But here's where I think the Brawn GP comparison becomes even more interesting. In 2009, Brawn didn't just succeed because they had a good car. They succeeded because they saw through the regulations in a way that nobody else did. They found loopholes, advantages, and interpretations that gave them a massive head start over teams with much bigger budgets and more resources. Recent reports suggest that some manufacturers have already identified potential loopholes in the new engine regulations, particularly around compression ratios. Now, Honda wasn't specifically mentioned in these reports, but that could mean absolutely anything. Maybe they haven't found the loophole yet, or maybe they're keeping their discoveries much more secret than their competitors. What I find fascinating is how Newey approaches these regulation changes. He doesn't just read the technical documents and design accordingly. He finds the spaces between the lines, the areas where the rules don't explicitly forbid certain approaches. That's how he's been able to create cars that are technically legal but perform at levels that seem almost impossible. The timing of everything is also incredibly suspicious in the best possible way. Major regulation changes in Formula One always create opportunities for teams to leapfrog the established order. We saw it with Brawn in 2009. We saw glimpses of it when various teams nailed specific regulation changes throughout the years. The 2026 changes are so comprehensive that they essentially level the playing field and reward whoever interprets the rules most cleverly. And let's be real about something. Aston Martin has the resources to support a championship challenge. This isn't a budget team hoping to punch above their weight. Lawrence Stroll has invested hundreds of millions of dollars into building world-class facilities, hiring top talent, and creating the infrastructure needed to compete at the highest level. The only thing they've been missing is the right technical leadership to tie it all together. Now, I do want to address the elephant in the room. Newey himself has been trying to manage expectations, playing down some of the hype surrounding what Aston Martin might achieve in 2026. That's smart public relations, but it's also exactly what you'd expect from someone who's planning something big. You don't announce your secret weapons to the competition before the race starts. The question isn't whether Aston Martin will improve in 2026. With Newey's involvement and Honda's return, that's almost guaranteed. The real question is just how much they'll improve and whether they can pull off the kind of shock that Brawn GP delivered in 2009. What makes this story so compelling is that all the pieces are falling into place for lightning to strike twice. You have a legendary designer joining a team with unlimited resources and massive potential. You have new regulations that could shuffle the competitive order. You have a manufacturer partnership with Honda that brings its own unique perspective and technology. And you have a timeline that's given everyone involved plenty of time to prepare something special. Whether Aston Martin can actually pull off a Brawn GP-style miracle remains to be seen. But one thing is certain. The 2026 Formula One season just became a whole lot more interesting. If Damon Hill is right, if Adrian Newey can work his magic one more time, we could be witnessing the beginning of one of the greatest comeback stories in motorsport history. What do you think? Can Adrian Newey turn Aston Martin into championship contenders, or are expectations getting out of hand? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more Formula One analysis as we head into what promises to be an absolutely incredible 2026 season. Formula One fans, buckle up because we need to talk about Alpine and what just happened at their Silverstone shakedown that has everyone talking. If you thought Alpine was done for after their disastrous 2025 season, you might want to think again. What they just accomplished with their brand new A526 car might completely change everything we thought we knew about this team's future. After finishing dead last in the championship standings just months ago, Alpine has been written off by most fans and analysts alike. The French team became a laughingstock, plagued by constant breakdowns, mechanical failures, and strategic blunders that made them the most unreliable outfit on the entire grid. But here's the thing that nobody saw coming. Their first official test session with their 2026 car just went smoother than anyone could have imagined. Let me set the scene for you. Yesterday at Silverstone, Alpine rolled out their completely redesigned A526 for its maiden voyage. This isn't just another evolutionary update. We're talking about a ground-up rebuild designed specifically for the new 2026 regulations. The team made the bold decision to essentially abandon their 2025 car development halfway through last season to focus entirely on this project. That's a massive gamble that could either save their reputation or destroy what little credibility they have left. Now here's where things get interesting. During these initial filming days, most teams are incredibly cautious. We're talking about preliminary system checks, gentle installation laps, and careful monitoring of every component. Teams are allowed to complete up to 200 kilometers during these sessions, but many choose to run significantly less to avoid any potential disasters. After all, the last thing you want is your brand new car breaking down on national television during its first public outing. But Alpine? They took a completely different approach. Their technical director, David Sanchez, revealed something that sent shockwaves through the paddock. From the very first moment their driver climbed into the cockpit, the A526 started reeling off consistent laps without a single interruption. We're talking about 5 and 6 lap stints right out of the gate, with the car performing flawlessly from the moment it left the garage. Think about how significant this is for a team that couldn't keep their cars running for more than a handful of corners last season. During the previous 4-year ground effect era, Alpine became synonymous with reliability nightmares. Their engines would blow up without warning, mechanical components would fail at the worst possible moments, and their drivers spent more time walking back to the pits than actually racing. It got so bad that some fans started joking about whether Alpine cars came with built-in ejector seats. But Wednesday's session told a completely different story. When weather conditions deteriorated at Silverstone, forcing most teams to pack up early, Alpine made a decision that perfectly illustrates their newfound confidence. Instead of playing it safe, they sent their driver back out onto the wet track and told him to just keep circling. Lap after lap after lap, the A526 continued running without missing a beat. The only reason they eventually stopped wasn't because of mechanical issues or safety concerns. It was because the driver radioed in saying visibility was becoming too poor as darkness fell. Sanchez admitted they could have easily completed the full 200-kilometer allowance if they wanted to push it. For a team that struggled to complete 200 meters without drama last season, this represents a fundamental transformation in their engineering approach. What makes this story even more compelling is the context surrounding Alpine's 2026 campaign. Executive advisor Flavio Briatore has been making waves since returning to the team, publicly stating that there are absolutely no excuses for poor performance this season. They've switched to Mercedes power units, invested heavily in new personnel, and completely restructured their technical departments. The pressure is immense, but early signs suggest they might actually be ready to deliver on these bold promises. The psychological impact of a successful shakedown cannot be overstated in Formula One. When engineers and mechanics see their creation working flawlessly from day one, it builds tremendous confidence throughout the entire organization. Conversely, early problems can create a cascade of doubt and second-guessing that haunts teams for entire seasons. Alpine's smooth Silverstone debut suggests they've got their fundamental package sorted, which is absolutely crucial heading into the upcoming Barcelona tests. These Barcelona sessions will provide the real test of Alpine's transformation. While filming days are limited in scope and intensity, proper testing allows teams to push their cars to the absolute limit. We'll see high-speed runs, extended stints, and aggressive setup changes that reveal any hidden weaknesses in the design. If Alpine can maintain their reliability advantage during these more demanding conditions, they could emerge as genuine contenders for regular points finishes. The broader implications extend far beyond just one team's fortunes. Formula One thrives when all 10 teams can field competitive, reliable machinery. Alpine's struggles in recent years have essentially reduced the grid to 9 functioning outfits, diminishing the overall spectacle for fans. Their potential resurrection could restore proper midfield battles and create more unpredictable race outcomes. Looking ahead to the 2026 season opener, Alpine's early reliability success puts them in a unique position. While other teams might be frantically troubleshooting teething problems with their new cars, Alpine could arrive at the first race weekend with a thoroughly sorted package. In Formula One, reliability often trumps raw speed, especially early in new regulation cycles when everyone is still learning how to extract maximum performance. The transformation also reflects broader changes within Alpine's organizational structure. New technical leadership, Improved resource allocation and clearer development priorities have apparently created an environment where engineering excellence can flourish. After years of management chaos and conflicting objectives, the team seems to have found focus and direction. However, we must remember that one successful test session doesn't guarantee championship glory. Formula One is littered with teams that looked promising during winter testing, only to struggle once competitive racing began. Real validation will come when Alpine faces wheel-to-wheel combat against their rivals, dealing with tire degradation, fuel loads, and strategic pressure that simply cannot be replicated during isolated test sessions. The pressure now shifts to Alpine's drivers to maximize this. Improved machinery. With a potentially reliable car beneath them, there will be no excuses for failing to score points or compete for podium positions. The technical foundation appears solid, but driver performance and race day execution will ultimately determine whether this promising start translates into meaningful championship success. As we count down toward the 2026 season opener, Alpine's Silverstone success story provides genuine hope that Formula One's most troubled team might finally be ready to reclaim their place among the sport's elite competitors. What happens when a Formula One team bets everything on a single season and then spectacularly fails at the most basic requirement? Williams Racing just found out the hard way, and their 2026 championship dreams might have crashed before they even left the garage. The Williams Formula One team has just delivered one of the most embarrassing pre-season disasters in recent memory. After spending 18 months telling everyone they were going all in on the 2026 regulations, they've completely missed the first week of Barcelona testing because their car failed mandatory safety tests. This isn't just a minor setback. It's a catastrophic failure that exposes fundamental problems within one of Formula One's most historic teams. Let me paint you the full picture of how spectacular this failure really is. Williams has been operating under a very specific strategy since 2024. Team principal James Vowles made a bold decision to sacrifice short-term performance for long-term success by focusing almost entirely on the 2026 regulation changes. This meant fewer upgrades for their current cars, reduced development on immediate improvements, and a complete commitment to getting the new era right from day one. The logic seemed sound at the time. Williams finished fifth in the Constructors' Championship last season, their best result since 2017, despite already diverting resources toward 2026. They were being hailed as dark horses for the upcoming season precisely because of this forward-thinking approach. Industry experts praised their strategic vision, and fans began to believe that Williams might finally return to their winning ways. But here's where the story takes a dramatic turn. The most fundamental requirement for any Formula One car is passing the FIA's mandatory crash tests. These aren't optional assessments or minor technical checks. They're absolutely essential safety requirements that every single car must pass before it can turn a wheel on track. Williams failed these tests so badly that they had to completely abandon the first week of pre-season testing in Barcelona. Think about what this means. While every other team on the grid is accumulating crucial data, learning about their car's behavior, and making vital setup adjustments, Williams drivers are sitting at home watching everyone else prepare for the season. 3 full days of testing data that their competitors will use to refine and optimize their packages. Data that Williams simply won't have. The immediate consequences are obvious, but the long-term implications are potentially devastating. Pre-season testing in modern Formula One isn't just about shaking down new cars. It's about understanding complex aerodynamic behaviors, optimizing power unit integration, and fine-tuning suspension characteristics. Missing even one day puts a team at a significant disadvantage. Missing 3 days is almost unprecedented in the modern era. What makes this failure so particularly damaging is the context surrounding it. Williams didn't just stumble into this situation. They've been preparing for this moment for over a year. They made conscious decisions to prioritize 2026 development, justifying reduced performance in previous seasons by pointing to their early preparation for the new regulations. They repeatedly told sponsors, fans, and media that they were ahead of the curve, getting a head start while other teams were still focused on current cars. The crash test failure suggests something went fundamentally wrong in their design process. These aren't last-minute issues or minor oversights. Crash test structures are designed and validated months in advance. The fact that Williams failed these tests indicates serious problems with their basic car architecture, the kind of problems that should have been identified and resolved during the design phase. Industry insiders are already speculating about what went wrong. Some suggest that Williams may have pushed too aggressively with innovative design concepts, potentially compromising structural integrity in pursuit of performance gains. Others point to possible resource allocation issues, suggesting that the team may have spread their engineering talent too thin across multiple projects. The timing couldn't be worse for Williams' reputation. This is the same organization that experienced significant operational difficulties just 2 years ago, leading to various pre-season complications in 2024. At the time, James Vowles explained those issues as growing pains, necessary adjustments as the team restructured to operate more like a top-tier organization. He promised improved processes and better preparation moving forward. Now, facing an even more serious preseason disaster, those promises ring hollow. Questions are being raised about Williams' fundamental competency as a Formula One constructor. If they can't even build a car that passes basic safety tests after 18 months of focused development, how can they be trusted to compete at the highest level of motorsport? The ripple effects extend beyond just missing Barcelona testing. Williams still plans to participate in the final preseason test in Bahrain, but they'll arrive with an untested car and zero baseline data. While other teams will be fine-tuning their setups based on Barcelona learnings, Williams will be starting from scratch, trying to understand their car's basic characteristics under time pressure. This puts enormous stress on their drivers and engineering team. Instead of building confidence through systematic testing programs, they'll be thrown into the deep end, trying to extract maximum performance from an unknown package while their competitors arrive with weeks of preparation and data analysis behind them. The commercial implications are equally serious. Williams has been working hard to rebuild their reputation and attract premium sponsors after years of struggle. This kind of fundamental operational failure undermines confidence in the organization's competency. Potential partners want to associate with success and professionalism, not with teams that can't meet basic regulatory requirements. From a technical perspective, the crash test failure raises questions about Williams' entire 2026 package. If their structural design is flawed enough to fail safety tests, what other aspects of the car might be compromised? Aerodynamic development, suspension integration, and power unit packaging all depend on the basic car architecture being sound. A fundamental redesign to address crash test failures could have cascading effects throughout the entire vehicle. The psychological impact on the team cannot be underestimated either. Williams personnel have spent months building toward this moment, believing they were ahead of the competition and ready to make a statement. Instead, they're facing embarrassment and playing catch-up before the season even begins. This kind of setback can severely impact team morale and confidence. Looking ahead, Williams faces a monumental challenge. They need to rapidly address their crash test failures, complete essential testing programs, and prepare for the season opener, all while their competitors are already weeks ahead in their preparation. The margin for error in modern Formula One is incredibly small, and Williams has already used up their buffer before turning a single competitive lap. The 2026 season was supposed to be Williams' comeback story, their return to relevance after years of struggle. Instead, they've delivered one of the most spectacular preseason failures in recent memory, raising serious questions about their fundamental competency as a Formula One constructor. Whether they can recover from this disaster remains to be seen, but one thing is certain: their championship dreams just took a massive hit before the season even began. What happens when a 7-time world champion joins the most legendary team in Formula One, only to struggle with basic communication? This isn't just another driver transfer story. This is about Lewis Hamilton's rocky first season at Ferrari and what needs to happen for him to reclaim his throne in 2026. After 12 years with Mercedes, Hamilton made the boldest move of his career by switching to the scarlet red of Ferrari. But his debut season at Maranello didn't go according to plan. The chemistry that once made him unstoppable seemed to vanish overnight, leaving fans wondering if we'd seen the last of the dominant Hamilton we once knew. Ross Brawn, former Ferrari technical director and one of Formula One's most respected voices, believes there's still hope, but he's identified specific conditions that must align for Hamilton to return to his championship-winning form. The clock is ticking, and Ferrari has just weeks to get this right before the new season begins. Let's dive into what went wrong in Hamilton's first Ferrari season and what needs to change for him to become a title contender again. The relationship between a driver and race engineer is sacred in Formula One. It's built on trust, understanding, and split-second communication that can mean the difference between victory and defeat. For over a decade, Hamilton had this perfect partnership with Peter Bonington at Mercedes. Their radio exchanges became legendary, with Bono's calm guidance helping Hamilton through countless battles. But when Hamilton joined Ferrari, he had to start fresh with Italian engineer Riccardo Adami. From the very first races, something felt off. Their radio communications were tense, sometimes heated, and often confusing. Where Hamilton was used to clear, supportive guidance, he found himself receiving instructions that didn't match his driving style or race situation. The tension wasn't hidden from public view either. Fans could hear the frustration in Hamilton's voice during race weekends, while Adami seemed increasingly irritated by Hamilton's feedback and requests. What should have been a partnership became a clash of personalities and communication styles. This breakdown went beyond just radio chatter. In Formula One, the race engineer is your lifeline during the 2-hour mental and physical marathon that is a Grand Prix. They manage tire strategy, fuel consumption, weather decisions, and tactical moves that can make or break a race result. Without that seamless connection, even the most talented driver can struggle to perform. Hamilton's difficulties weren't just about personalities clashing. The 7-time champion was also grappling with Ferrari's completely different approach to car development and race strategy. After spending his prime years in the Mercedes system, every aspect of his new environment required adjustment. The Ferrari car philosophy differs significantly from what Hamilton knew at Mercedes. The handling, characteristics, brake feel, power delivery, and aerodynamic behavior all demanded a learning curve that proved steeper than expected. Meanwhile, Ferrari's strategic thinking and pit wall decisions followed patterns that Hamilton hadn't experienced before. Adding to these challenges was Hamilton's ongoing struggle with the current generation of ground effect cars introduced in recent seasons. Since these regulations came into effect, Hamilton has managed only 2 race victories, a stark contrast to his previous dominant form. The car's behavior and requirements simply haven't suited his driving style as well as the previous generation did. Recognizing that the Hamilton-Adami partnership wasn't working, Ferrari made a crucial decision. They've moved Adami to a different role within the team and are actively searching for a new race engineer who can unlock Hamilton's potential. This change signals Ferrari's commitment to making Hamilton's second season more successful than his first. However, finding the right replacement isn't straightforward. The ideal race engineer for Hamilton needs specific qualities that match his communication style, racing instincts, and tactical preferences. They need someone who can provide the calm, clear guidance that Hamilton thrives on, while also understanding Ferrari's systems and philosophy. Currently, Charles Leclerc's race engineer Brian Bozzi is expected to work with both Ferrari drivers during pre-season testing. This temporary arrangement gives Ferrari time to identify and integrate the perfect long-term solution for Hamilton, but it also highlights how urgent this decision has become. The timing pressure is immense. With the new season starting in early March, Ferrari has limited opportunities to establish this crucial relationship before competitive racing begins. Every day of delay potentially impacts Hamilton's preparation and confidence heading into his second Ferrari campaign. Ross Brawn's assessment of Hamilton's situation comes with unique authority. Having spent 10 years at Ferrari as their technical director, Brawn understands both the team's culture and the pressures that come with driving for the prancing horse. His insights into what Hamilton needs aren't just theoretical observations. According to Brawn, Hamilton is a driver who needs everything to gel properly around him to perform at his peak level. This isn't a weakness, but rather a characteristic of many elite athletes who require optimal conditions to access their highest abilities. When those conditions align, the results can be spectacular. Brawn specifically mentioned that Hamilton needs the right incentives and opportunities to showcase vintage form. This suggests that Ferrari must not only fix the technical and personnel issues, but also provide Hamilton with a competitive car that can fight for victories and championships. The former Ferrari boss remains optimistic about Hamilton's prospects, but his comments also serve as a warning. Ferrari has created a situation where multiple elements must come together simultaneously for success. The margin for error is small, and the expectations are enormous. Brawn's confidence in seeing vintage Hamilton return isn't based on wishful thinking. It's grounded in his understanding of how quickly situations can change in Formula One when the right pieces fall into place. But those pieces need to fall into place soon. The 2026 season brings the most significant technical changes Formula One has seen in decades. These new regulations could be exactly what Hamilton needs to rediscover his championship form. The cars will feature completely different characteristics, potentially leveling the playing field and suiting Hamilton's driving style better than recent seasons. Active aerodynamics represent the biggest change, with movable front and rear wings that drivers must manage throughout each race. This adds a new strategic element that could favor experienced drivers, like Hamilton, who excel at adapting to complex situations during races. The power unit changes are equally dramatic. The new 50-50 split between electrical and combustion power, combined with overtake mode and boost systems, will require entirely new driving techniques. Drivers will need to manage these energy systems while also handling the active aerodynamics, creating opportunities for the most skilled competitors to gain advantages. Hamilton's experience in racecraft could prove invaluable in mastering these new technologies. While younger drivers might adapt quickly to the physical aspects, Hamilton's strategic thinking and race management skills could give him an edge in optimizing all these new systems simultaneously. Former Mercedes boss Toto Wolff believes the 2026 changes will suit Hamilton perfectly. The need for intelligent energy management and strategic thinking plays directly into Hamilton's strengths as a complete racing driver who understands the bigger picture beyond just raw speed. Ferrari's challenge extends beyond just finding Hamilton the right race engineer. They must also deliver a car capable of fighting for championships while creating an environment where Hamilton feels comfortable pushing to his absolute limits. The team's recent struggles with strategy and pit wall decisions need addressing. Hamilton is used to Mercedes' methodical approach to race management, and Ferrari must demonstrate they can match that level of tactical sophistication. Mixed messages and unclear strategies will only compound the communication problems they're already trying to solve. Ferrari's car development philosophy may also need adjustment to better suit Hamilton's preferences. While Leclerc has adapted well to Ferrari's approach, Hamilton brings different requirements and feedback that could actually improve the car for both drivers if properly integrated. The pressure on Ferrari is enormous because Hamilton didn't join them for a comfortable retirement. At his age, every season counts, and he expects to be fighting for race wins and championships immediately. Ferrari must prove they can provide the complete package that Hamilton needs. Success in 2026 could validate Hamilton's bold decision to leave Mercedes and cement his legacy with a championship at Ferrari. Failure could raise questions about whether this career move was the right choice at this stage of his journey. The window for Hamilton to achieve his Ferrari dream is relatively narrow. While he remains physically and mentally sharp, the competitive nature of Formula One means every season matters. Ferrari cannot afford to waste another year finding the right formula for success. Current signs suggest Ferrari understands the urgency. Their willingness to change Hamilton's race engineer demonstrates they're committed to making necessary adjustments, rather than expecting Hamilton to simply adapt to their existing systems. The pre-season testing, the period, will be crucial for establishing whether the new working relationships can function effectively. Hamilton needs to build trust and communication patterns with his new team members before competitive pressures intensify during the racing season. If Ferrari can solve the personnel puzzle and deliver a competitive car, The combination of Hamilton's experience with the new regulations could produce exactly the vintage performances that Ross Brawn anticipates. But every element must align precisely. The stakes couldn't be higher for both Hamilton and Ferrari. For Hamilton, this represents potentially his final opportunity to win a championship with the sport's most famous team. For Ferrari, success with Hamilton could end their championship drought and restore their reputation as Formula One's premier destination. Ross Brawn's conditions for Hamilton's breakthrough at Ferrari are clear but demanding. The team must create the right environment, find the perfect race engineer, deliver a competitive car, and do it all quickly enough to capitalize on Hamilton's remaining peak years. The 2026 regulation changes provide an ideal reset opportunity, but only if Ferrari can execute their part of the equation. Hamilton's talent and hunger remain intact, but they need the proper framework to flourish. Whether we see vintage Hamilton return depends entirely on Ferrari's ability to create the conditions that Brawn has identified. The pieces are there, but assembling them correctly requires precision, timing, and perhaps a little luck. Formula One fans around the world will be watching to see if Ferrari can unlock the Hamilton magic one more time.